If you don't do what I say, we're getting divorced, he threatened, thrusting the papers into my hands. I knew this moment would come sooner or later. Fine. Let's get a divorce, I replied calmly. What? He blurted out, taken aback. I started filling out the forms right in front of him. All right, I'll fight it, I said, my voice steady. He stared at me in disbelief, as if he hadn't expected me to actually go through with it. You don't understand, he muttered. Without me, you'll be all alone. Sure, I'll be alone, I said, unfazed. Is that all you wanted to say? Because I'm busy packing. Packing? To move out, he stammered. Of course. We're getting divorced, so I'm leaving. The timing couldn't be better. My name is Sarah. A few years ago, I married my husband Jason. We don't have children, and both of us are busy with our careers. My parents passed away in an accident during my first year of work, leaving me to face life on my own. When Jason and I got married, I was so grateful. I longed to build a family with him and dreamed of having 2 children, imagining a bright future together. Reality turned out to be much different. After our wedding, Jason's attitude slowly grew cold. Sarah, if I ever leave, you'll be all alone again, he'd say during even the smallest arguments. He knew my vulnerabilities and used them against me, sparking constant fights. He often complained about my housework, picking at the smallest things. Stir-fried vegetables for dinner? He'd scoff. This is food for old people. Didn't I call you earlier to ask what you wanted for dinner? You said, whatever. Yes, but I still think a good wife should figure out what her husband wants and make it. I was craving pala tonight. Then why didn't you say so? You expect me to just know without asking. No matter what you cook, I'd still have something to complain about. What? What did you just say? I work just as hard as you do, and I'm the only one handling all the housework. Don't start with that. Before we got married, you said you enjoyed doing housework. I do enjoy it, but when you constantly criticize everything I do, it makes me not want to do it anymore. I see. What do you mean by that? Oh, nothing. Just thought you were getting a bit cheeky. Cheeky? If that's what you think, it means you don't respect me. I don't like that about you either. Always overanalyzing. I don't want a wife who talks down to me like this. Here we go again. Next, you'll probably remind me that I'm all alone in the world. And right on cue, Jason added his usual line. Well, maybe having kids will fix that loneliness. Maybe it's time we start a family. Jason always brings this up after every argument. When we first got married, I was eager to start a family right away. But the kind man I had married soon disappeared, replaced by someone who constantly complains. Now the idea of having children with him fills me with hesitation. It's true that Jason is my only family now, but before marrying him, I lived alone and managed just fine. I have enough money to support myself and could go back to that life if needed. Sometimes the thought of returning to solitude seems better than enduring Jason's threats. If we had a child, I fear I would spend my life enduring his abuse, and he would likely direct that abuse at me in front of our child. I can't shake this fear, and it leaves me feeling stuck. Jason doesn't like my reluctance, but he doesn't understand my reasons either. Before we got married, you were eager to have kids right away, so why are you now so hesitant? Isn't this a bit deceitful? If that's the case, why don't you make me feel more comfortable about having kids? Are you going to keep criticizing my cooking, my housework, and the way I fold clothes even in front of them? I'm not criticizing. I'm just expressing my thoughts. That's just how it sounds to you because you're overly sensitive. Maybe your personality was affected by not having parents during your childhood. What are you talking about? Are you trying to make me look foolish? I'm not making a fool out of you, Jason said with a dismissive grin. The look on Jason's face was clear proof that he was making a fool out of me. And to make matters worse, there was my mother-in-law. Any grandchildren yet? She would ask every time I visited her house. That's right. You should ask her about it too. She's not contributing at all, Jason would say. Sarah, what's going on? My mother-in-law's gaze was piercing. I was at a loss for words. Well, there are issues, my mother-in-law said. Jason, you need to discuss this with Sarah. I do talk to her all the time, but this woman. Don't call her this woman. Just make sure you and Sarah work things out, all right? All right, I understand. Jason replied. My mother-in-law is a quiet person. Since her husband passed away, she has been living alone. She means well, but her constant question, any grandchildren yet, weighs heavily on me. I can see how much she's looking forward to becoming a grandmother, so I can't bring myself to tell her that I'm unsure about staying married to her son because of his personality. I had no choice but to keep my concerns to myself. Then my mother-in-law had an accident. I received a call from Jason and left work early to rush to the hospital. I arrived before he did. I'm sorry for the trouble. How is mother? I'm okay, just a broken leg, she said with a weak smile. Oh my God, you don't need to cry like that, she reassured me, though I couldn't hold back my tears. I'm sorry, I was terrified I might lose you too. I was so worried on the way here. Oh well, I guess Jason didn't tell you. I'm sorry for making you worry and for reminding you of what happened to your parents. This was the first time my mother-in-law and I had a deep conversation. You should head home now, she said gently. But I want to wait for Jason. I'll go home with him, I replied. She sighed. He's not coming, so you might as well go home. That can't be true, I said, not wanting to believe it. I'm his mother. I know, she said firmly. It was disheartening, and unfortunately, she was right. Jason didn't show up even after visiting hours were over. When I returned home, he was lounging on the couch, watching TV. What are you doing? I asked, puzzled. What do you mean? Jason replied, feigning ignorance. You called me to say your mother had an accident today, so why didn't you come to the hospital? Oh, I figured you'd handle it. One person's enough, right? She's still alive, so it's not a huge deal. She's your only mother, I pointed out. Shut up. Just make me something to eat. I'm starving. You haven't eaten. Of course not. Why should I spend my own money when you're cooking? I'm not cooking. I'm going to bed, I said firmly. Don't you dare talk to me like that. If you make me angry, I'll divorce you, you know, Jason threatened. Then go ahead and do it. I was hungry, but Jason's words and actions had irritated me so much that I decided not to cook for him. I stayed in the bathroom, determined not to give in. The next morning, he was already gone. From that day on, he never came back, presumably staying at his parents' house. I left him there. After work that day, I hurried to the hospital to see my mother-in-law. I chose not to mention Jason. I didn't want to add to her worries. I made it a point to visit her every day while she was in the hospital. Thank you so much, said Sarah. I know you and Jason aren't getting along, but I really appreciate you being there for me. I'm sorry. You don't need to apologize, I replied softly. I can guess what's been happening. Understand you didn't want to have children, and he must have caused you a lot of distress. I didn't know how to respond to my mother-in-law's insight, so I remained silent. A woman's intuition can be very accurate. He's the one who made you worry about having kids, so it's all right now. I was looking forward to having a grandchild too, and I probably pressured you more than I should have. I'm truly sorry. I'm sorry I couldn't meet your expectations either. As we were talking, the doctor informed us that the treatment would take longer than expected, but she would be discharged soon. Since she lives alone, she'll need assistance until her leg heals. I'm in a position to help, so I arranged to work remotely on a limited basis with my company's approval. When I told my mother-in-law about it, she felt bad that I had to go through this, but I reassured her that it was fine. On the day of her discharge, I picked her up from the hospital and brought her back to her house. The atmosphere was tense, especially with Jason there. He should still be at work at this hour. I was supposed to meet him in the evening. but even though he approached, it felt uncomfortable. My mother-in-law was watching me intently. Actually, Jason and I had a bit of a fight, and he left the house, so today will be the first time we're seeing each other in a while. My mother-in-law looked uneasy. See each other where? This is the only place I can think he might have gone. Her expression grew stern. I understand now. I'm sorry, I said. Why are you apologizing? Jason is your beloved son. I know it must be uncomfortable for you to hear that I've had conflicts with him. No, not at all. He's the type who never bothers to visit me. What? He never came to visit you? No, never. I was shocked. My mother-in-law had been in the hospital for 2 weeks, and he hadn't visited her even once. What, Anne? Well, he's not the sweet boy you might think he is. What do you mean? Sarah, calm down and listen. He doesn't have a key to this place, so he's not here. That means it's fine. I have an idea. Let's discuss what we can do together. Then my mother-in-law surprised me with an unexpected offer. A week later, I found myself back in the house. As I was packing my bags, I heard the front door open. Oh, perfect timing. I wanted to talk to you. I'm busy. How's Mom doing? Why don't you go see her yourself? Ha! You're the one taking care of her, so I don't need to go. Besides, you're supposed to be looking after Mom. If you don't do what I say, we're getting a divorce. He handed me the divorce papers. Had been expecting this sooner or later. All right, then let's get a divorce, I said, filling out the divorce papers right in front of him. Fine, I'll fight for myself, Jason replied, looking taken aback. You don't understand, do you? Without me, you'll be all alone. Yeah, all alone. Is that all you have to say? If so, that's enough. I'm busy preparing to move out. Where are you moving to? What? Isn't it obvious? I'm divorcing you and moving out. The timing is just right. And who will take care of Mom? Don't worry. I'll make sure your mother is taken care of. You're an idiot, you know that. If you stood up for my mom, you'd get your inheritance. When she dies, I'll be the one to inherit everything as her only son. You're not my son anymore. Earned in surprise as my mother-in-law appeared in the doorway. Oh, what are you doing here, Mother? You need nursing care, don't you? I came to help Sarah move out, you idiot. I can manage on my own with these crutches. My real child is Sarah. I don't need someone who's just after my inheritance while I'm still alive. You won't get a thing. I'm divorcing her. That means she won't be entitled to any inheritance. I'm in the process of adopting a child. What? I'm also in the process of making sure you're disqualified from inheriting anything. You won't get a penny of my money. Oh, that's why I wanted kids. I thought if I had children, they'd be entitled to the inheritance. That's why I pushed for having kids as soon as possible. You're hopeless. You're more of an idiot than anyone could imagine. If you have a child, I'll make sure that child is disqualified from inheriting as well. You old. Jason tried to grab my mother-in-law, but I quickly intervened, pushing him aside and taking her by the hand as we left the house. Hey, are you his wife? A strange woman stood in front of our house. Oh, it's you. You're the one he's been having an affair with. What? Well, for now. Did you sign the divorce papers? Please get out of this house as soon as possible. I see. So Jason had dragged this woman into his scheme. I was taken aback by her sudden appearance, but felt no sympathy for Jason's affair. Instead, I was relieved to know I could secure alimony. When Jason showed up, he flinched at the sight of me with his girlfriend. You're the one who made her wait here. So you were having an affair, huh? Thanks for the confirmation. I'll be sure to get my alimony. Jason stood there, dumbfounded as my mother-in-law and I got into the car and drove away. We went straight to the city office and filed the divorce papers. I then pursued alimony from both Jason and his girlfriend. Despite their excuses, their affair was easily exposed through the girlfriend's social media. They transferred large sums of money to me. It turned out the girlfriend was after my mother-in-law's inheritance, and she vanished from Jason's life once she realized he wouldn't inherit anything. It was clear they were both motivated by money. Jason made several attempts to reconcile by visiting my parents-in-law's house, but his mother refused to see him. I blocked his contact information early on, and though he called from unknown numbers a few times, I didn't answer. Since then, my mother-in-law's leg has fully recovered, and she's thriving with no lingering effects. I'm deeply grateful to her for suggesting that I move on. Now, several years later, I'm still enjoying life with my mother-in-law. I'm no longer alone. We've formed a close-knit family, bound not by blood, but by the care we share. I plan to continue living my life with her, as she is like a mother to me. It's unforgivable to take your spouse for granted and treat them poorly. Jason's reasons for wanting children were selfish and misguided, and he will never find happiness. I hope Sarah and her mother find happiness in the future. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to our channel. See you in the next one.
I've made a significant decision regarding the $3 million. It's decided to split it between my mother and myself. This resolution came swiftly after my father's funeral. Robert, after examining the inheritance documents without seeking permission, remarked to me, "Kelly, don't be too greedy." Amidst thoughts of finally quitting my job, gratitude flooded my mind for the caring old man. "Are you referring to my dad?" I blurted out inadvertently, ignoring my confusion. Robert and my mother-in-law enthusiastically discussed plans to purchase a new car and indulge in shopping. Faced with this unexpected development, my emotions reached a boiling point. Burdened with household chores and insulted by their remarks about my father, I couldn't bear to continue living with Robert and my mother-in-law. Suppressing my anger, I forced a smile and replied, "Sure, feel free to use the money as you and my mother-in-law please." I am Kelly Cohan, a 38-year-old housewife, working alongside my husband. My parents, both doctors, ran a well-reputed clinic in our hometown. As an only child, I was showered with love. After graduating from the School of Pharmacy, I secured a job at a major pharmaceutical company. Though my parents wished I had become a doctor, they respected my decision. 10 years ago, my mother tragically died in an accident, leaving my father and me devastated. During those trying times, Robert, my then boyfriend, supported me. We met through a mutual friend, and 2 years after my mother's passing, Robert proposed. Robert was an ordinary salaryman in the food and beverage industry, but I believed we could overcome any challenge and find happiness together. My father was overjoyed when I shared news of our engagement. "I've heard how Robert supported you, Kelly. Thank you so much. Please continue to take care of her," he said, facing Robert with sincerity. Standing next to Robert, I felt a mixture of emotions. Immersed in a wave of happiness, we visited Robert's family home the following week to announce our impending marriage. His mother, adorned in flashy makeup and divorced from Robert's father, scrutinized me with an air of rudeness. "Marriage, huh? You're Robert's choice for you? Isn't she a plain choice for you, and she's older, right? Wouldn't a younger and prettier girl be better for you?" she said, evaluating me without any restraint. Quickly, Robert retorted, "Mom, you know I'm in pharmaceuticals, right? Kelly works there." Her father is a doctor and runs his practice. Instead of highlighting my character, Robert emphasized the financial advantages. In response, his mother's expression transformed into one of satisfaction. "Oh, Robert, you should have told me such important things earlier. That changes everything. I happily approve of the marriage. Nice to meet you, Kelly." "Thank you," she declared, granting her approval. With Robert overjoyed at his mother's acceptance, I couldn't shake off a lingering sense of unease. Despite the smooth proceedings and approval from Robert's mother, as we were about to register our marriage, my father, a doctor and real estate investor, presented me with an apartment in a luxury building in New York City as a wedding gift. Excitedly, I informed Robert, "Dad has given me this apartment as a wedding gift. It's our new home. Let's live here happily and peacefully together." Robert smiled, and our married life commenced. However, post-marriage, I began to notice something disconcerting. Robert, having lived with his parents until then, seemed almost incapable of handling household chores. He couldn't cook, didn't know how to operate the washing machine, and showed no interest in learning. Garbage would be left scattered around with no effort to dispose of it properly. While my intention was to conscientiously share household responsibilities, Robert's careless attitude only heightened my dissatisfaction. In the initial year of our marriage, I willingly took on all the household duties, despite some complaints, considering we were still in the honeymoon phase. However, the combination of work exhaustion and struggling to keep up with chores pushed me to my limit in our second year. Deciding it was time for a serious conversation, I bravely expressed my dissatisfaction to Robert. To my dismay, his response lacked gratitude or reflection. "I'm tired from work too. You're much better at chores than I am, right? It's better if you do them since I'm not good at it." He dismissed just like that. Consequently, Robert hardly contributed to the chores, leaving me to bear the brunt of our household responsibilities. But that wasn't the sole issue. After marrying Robert, I discovered that his mother harbored some peculiar ideas. Robert, not particularly interested in seasonal events, led me to send a quality scarf and carnations to his mother for Mother's Day. Despite selecting a nice scarf from a department store, his mother's displeased call criticized it as not being from a famous brand, deeming it absurd to send such a no-name item. Attempting to explain its quality proved futile, as she insisted on items from a very famous luxury brand. Stunned by her reaction, I reported this to Robert upon his return home. Instead of empathizing, he nonchalantly said, "What? Just do as she said." Robert failed to take my side, and from that point on, we started giving her cash as she demanded. By our 5th year of marriage, her frequent visits became a regular occurrence, always finding reasons to ask for money. Despite this, Robert, without any complaints, would always smile and comply with his mother's financial requests. I held a job while Robert's income remained limited and small, making our daily life just barely manageable. Desperation drove me to dip into our savings to cut living expenses. Despite my frustrations, I understood Robert's deep affection for his mother, who had supported me during tough times. She was the mother of someone important to me, and with that thought, I endured. Now, in our 8th year of marriage, I continued to handle all the household chores and kept giving money to my mother-in-law. One day, amidst this routine, my father, whom I hadn't seen in a while, unexpectedly called me. The story he shared during our rare meeting was shockingly unexpected. He revealed that he was suffering from terminal cancer and treatment was no longer possible. Overwhelmed with shock, tears spilled from my eyes. My father gently stroked my head, just as he did when I was a child, saying, "Kelly, this is fate. Let us accept it." Quietly, I questioned him, "Dad, why even you?" Thus, my days became a juggling act of work, household duties, and visits to my father's hospital. While work allowed some flexibility, managing the household was not easy. When I told Robert that my first priority would be caring for my father, he showed no reaction or willingness to help. "Well, it's tough with your father's sudden condition. Please do your best," was the only thing Robert said. He visited my father in the hospital only once. My father's care consumed all my time, leaving no room to spare for Robert. If I ever had a moment to worry about him, I prioritized my father. One day, as my father lay in his hospital bed, he suddenly asked, "Kelly, how is your marriage with Robert going?" Caught off guard, thoughts of Robert's demeanor at home and his mother's behavior flooded my mind. Unable to answer properly, I hesitated. Sensing my turmoil, my father comforted me, saying, "Kelly, you don't have to endure. Think about your happiness. Don't worry, you won't have any hardships after I'm gone." Tears flowed uncontrollably as my father silently and firmly held my hand. 3 months later, the inevitable moment arrived. My father passed away quietly, engulfing me in immense sorrow. Amidst funeral arrangements, Robert showed no interest in my grief and offered no help. Despite this, I was too consumed with preparations to notice. Many friends and acquaintances attended my father's funeral, making it a heartfelt farewell, even for the indifferent Robert and his mother. The day after the funeral, a lawyer called about my father's inheritance. Arranging a meeting, I listened to the surprising explanation. After deducting taxes like inheritance tax, my father's estate amounted to over $3 million. He had not only earned income as a doctor but also invested in real estate, leaving behind a vast fortune to be inherited by me, his only daughter. Wrapped in surprise and gratitude, yet trembling at the thought of handling such a huge amount of money, I stood on the threshold of a new chapter in my life. Upon returning home, I delved into the inheritance process. Spreading out the documents received from the lawyer on my desk, I tiredly read through them, feeling overwhelmed by exhaustion. Drifting off on the sofa for a brief moment, I awoke to the cheerful voices of Robert and his mother in the distance. "Huh? Robert and mother too? When did you come?" I inquired, still groggy. Approaching me with a beaming smile, Robert exclaimed, "Yes, Kelly, well done." Confused by his sudden excitement, I noticed the inheritance papers in his hand, the same documents I had been reviewing. "Wait, don't just read those without asking," I said, shocked and angry at Robert for looking through the documents without permission. Raising my voice, I expressed my displeasure. However, my mother-in-law, unconcerned, happily chimed in, "Wow, an inheritance of $3 million. Isn't that amazing? Now we can live comfortably for the rest of our lives." Confused by her sudden remark, I couldn't comprehend the shift in attitude. Robert then turned serious and continued, "By the way, about this $3 million, I decided that it will be split between me and my mom. It was right after my father's funeral." Having looked at the documents related to the inheritance I was supposed to receive without permission, Robert remarked, "Kelly, don't be too greedy. Oh, now I can finally quit my job. I have to thank the doting old man." "Doting old man? Are you talking about my dad?" I accidentally blurted out. Ignoring my confusion over this sudden turn of events, Robert and my mother-in-law excitedly discussed buying a new car and going shopping. At that moment, I couldn't hold back my emotions any longer. I teetered on the brink of exploding, burdened with household chores and enduring insults directed at my father. Summoning all my composure, I managed a forced smile and replied, "Sure, use the money as you and my mother-in-law please." "As you wish," I added, suppressing my seething anger. My mother-in-law, seemingly satisfied, cheerfully chimed in, "That's the spirit, Kelly. Quick to agree. Now make sure you work hard and earn money. I don't want our savings to decrease, so work hard." I nodded, pretending to heed her selfish words. Subsequently, Robert and my mother-in-law embarked on a spree of lavish spending, behaving as if they had lost their senses. Robert abruptly quit his job, and my mother-in-law practically moved in with us, incessantly staying at our house. They indulged in luxury brand items and frequented expensive restaurants, boasting about their sophistication. Meanwhile, all the household chores were dumped on me, as if I were a mere maid. Robert seemed convinced that my father's inheritance would materialize immediately. Carelessly withdrawing money from our joint account, my savings of $1 million dwindled rapidly. When I protested their excessive spending, Robert dismissed it, laughing. "What are you talking about? Isn't $3 million coming soon? This kind of spending is no big deal." Despite my warnings, Robert continued unchecked. A month later, he and my mother-in-law abruptly left for a trip to Hawaii, leaving me behind without an invitation. Alone at home, I resolved to take action. About a week later, while I was relaxing at home, a loud knock on the door jolted me from my thoughts. Glancing at the intercom monitor, I spotted Robert and my mother-in-law, both adorned in aloha shirts, standing at the front door. Calmly but with simmering anger, I inquired, "What do you want?" Robert's voice rang out, filled with confusion and frustration. "What are you even talking about? Why won't the door open?" Standing firm, I confidently replied through the intercom, "Well, I changed the locks on the door, so of course it won't open." "Why?" "Let's talk this over," Robert pleaded calmly, gesturing towards a nearby cafe. Please go ahead. I'll join you shortly. I suggested, knowing our conversation was futile at the entrance. Once I confirmed they have left, I made my way to the cafe. Arriving, I saw Robert and his mother already waiting, visibly furious. What's this about? Did you change the locks? Hand over the new keys right now, Robert demanded. There's no need for me to give you the new keys. You both need to leave that house, I calmly asserted, facing their growing anger. Presenting a piece of paper, I revealed my decision. A divorce petition I had already filled out. Divorce? You're serious about divorcing me? His mother's voice trembled with shock. Kelly, why has it come to this? She queried, bewildered. In a quiet tone, I addressed their panic. By the way, you've been spending lavishly every day. Are you sure your finances are okay? Robert vehemently defended, what money? Of course it's fine. Your father's inheritance is coming, right? There should still be over $50,000 in our joint account. Look, I'll show you right now. Opening his banking app, Robert's expression shifted abruptly. What? What's this? Why is the money gone? It was there just the other day, he exclaimed, his mother mirroring his confusion as she frantically checked her phone. A loud knock on the door jolted me from my thoughts. Glancing at the intercom monitor, I spotted Robert and my mother-in-law, both adorned in aloha shirts, standing at the front door. Calmly but with simmering anger, I inquired, what do you want? Robert's voice rang out, filled with confusion and frustration. What are you even talking about? Why won't the door open? Standing firm, I confidently replied through the intercom. Well, I changed the locks on the door, so of course it won't open. Why? Let's talk this over, Robert pleaded calmly, gesturing towards a nearby cafe. Please go ahead. I'll join you shortly. I suggested, knowing our conversation was futile at the entrance. Once I confirmed they have left, I made my way to the cafe. Arriving, I saw Robert and his mother already waiting, visibly furious. What's this about? Did you change the locks? Hand over the new keys right now, Robert demanded. There's no need for me to give you the new keys. You both need to leave that house, I calmly asserted, facing their growing anger. Presenting a piece of paper, I revealed my decision. A divorce petition I had already filled out. Divorce? You're serious about divorcing me? His mother's voice trembled with shock. Kelly, why has it come to this? She queried, bewildered. In a quiet tone, I addressed their panic. By the way, you've been spending lavishly every day. Are you sure your finances are okay? Robert vehemently defended, what money? Of course it's fine. Your father's inheritance is coming, right? There should still be over $50,000 in our joint account. Look, I'll show you right now. Opening his banking app, Robert's expression shifted abruptly. What? What's this? Why is the money gone? It was there just the other day, he exclaimed, his mother mirroring his confusion as she frantically checked her phone. I revealed the truth to them as they panicked, failing to grasp the situation. Of course it's gone. I'm divorcing you, so I moved that $50,000 to my account as part of the property division, I explained calmly. Robert's face twisted with anger momentarily, but then he smirked, almost recalling something. Fine, I'll divorce you then. Transfer the inheritance you got from your dad right away. After all, property acquired during the marriage is split half and half in a divorce, right? He retorted. Well, you might be misunderstanding something, I replied evenly. Why didn't you know that the inheritance I received, even though it was during our marriage, doesn't count for property division? There was a moment of stunned silence between us. Then Robert and his mother's expressions shifted drastically. Perhaps they truly believed they would receive part of my inheritance. I was astonished and could only sigh in disbelief. No, that can't be true. That's impossible. His mother protested. Her face blushed with a mix of denial and anger. Please check for yourself, I said mockingly. Robert started frantically searching on his smartphone. It says here property inherited by one spouse from a parent is considered separate property. Therefore, it's not subject to division and can't be split between the spouses. He read aloud, his mother joining in shock. Desperate, Robert approached me, pleading, "Kelly, please don't divorce me. I have no savings and no job. How am I supposed to live if you divorce me?" Faced with his plea, I remained resolute. Realizing it was time to move forward, I spoke clearly and firmly. "What are you talking about? Take responsibility for your actions. I will never forget how you both treated me. I'm divorcing you. I'll go to court if I have to." Intimidated by my fierce demeanor, Robert and his mother shrank back in fear, whimpering softly. Later on, Robert and I went through the divorce proceedings without issues. The $50,000 I had moved from our joint account was recognized as part of the marital property division. Eventually, I managed to evict Robert and his mother from my house. They found themselves deeper in debt, living in a rundown apartment and working tirelessly every day to pay off their debts. In contrast, I sold a condo I used to share with Robert and moved into my father's apartment. With the inheritance I received, I now live comfortably. Grateful to my late father, I aim to protect my happiness and spend my days peacefully, cherishing my new life ahead.
When Ken and I got married 3 years ago, we built our dream home together. It was the most significant purchase I've ever made, and we were both determined to cherish it as a symbol of our new life together. Our home was everything we had hoped for: the fresh scent of new construction, Ken's warm smile as he showed me around, and the spacious living room bathed in morning sunlight streaming through large windows. We had always dreamed of creating a space where we could truly relax and enjoy each other's company. I was particularly involved in the design details, from the built-in kitchen to the placement of the windows. On sunny Sunday afternoons, the light through the windows was just perfect, and Ken and I would unwind and take naps in that lovely glow. Brewing coffee in the kitchen filled the house with its comforting aroma, marking my moments of pure happiness. But achieving these blissful moments came at a cost. It took a lot of hard work to afford the mortgage, and I took pride in our ability to manage it. Ken shared that pride, of course. However, just a month after we moved in, I received an unexpected call from my mother-in-law, Pam, who lived separately from us. "You and Ken have finished building your home, right?" she'd asked. "Now that it's done, I'd like to move in with you. Living alone in this rundown place is taking a toll on my health." Pam is single and relies on welfare, and while we hadn't been very close, my interactions with her had been brief and mostly limited to pre-marriage greetings. This request was challenging. As newlyweds, it was difficult for me to imagine suddenly sharing our new home with Pam. "I understand, Anna. I know how challenging it would be for you to have my mother living with us, so I'll speak to her and let her know that we can't accommodate her request. Thank you for understanding." Fortunately, Ken has always been considerate of my feelings and truly understands me. He firmly turned down Pam's request to move in with us. However, 2 years later, when Ken and I had our first baby, Pam saw another opportunity and brought up the idea once more. "Isn't it tough to manage the baby and housework on your own?" she'd asked. "If I moved in with you, I would definitely help with both. It's a great opportunity for me, so please consider letting me live with you. Taking care of a newborn and managing household chores is indeed demanding, and I would appreciate any help we could get. Plus, since I plan to return to work eventually, having additional support would be beneficial. What do you think?" I asked Ken. "It might be helpful to have someone assist us." Ken agreed that having extra help could be a good idea, provided that Pam followed through on her promise. When I finally agreed to let Pam move in, I made it clear that her help with the baby and housework was a condition. Pam was thrilled and took her responsibilities seriously. She managed the baby and the chores diligently, offering to handle tasks like laundry and looking after the baby while I was out. "Okay, I'll take care of the laundry and fold the clothes," she said. "Thank you," I replied. "And while you're out for groceries, I'll look after the baby," she continued. "Oh, who's a good boy? You are," Pam cooed to the baby. Her support was a relief, and I was grateful for her help. I honestly didn't expect Pam to be so helpful, and I felt a bit guilty for underestimating her. For the first week, she was a great help around the house and with the baby, and I was grateful for her support. But that didn't last long. Soon Pam began slacking off. When Ken was away, she would lounge around and ignore my requests to care for our son. This became a frequent issue, and my trust in Pam started to wane. Her commitment to household chores quickly diminished, and I could no longer rely on her to look after the baby or manage the housework. I decided it was time to address the situation with her. Despite Ken's multiple attempts to talk to her, she dismissed his concerns. "You know I'm doing my best too," I told him, feeling the weight of the situation. "Anna is just being too strict. But we need her to help us properly. That's why we invited her to live with us." Pam reacted poorly whenever Ken confronted her, either blaming me or crying to gain his sympathy. She continued to stay at our home, but her attitude towards our son became increasingly negative. "Oh, he's crying again. He's so loud," she would complain. "Hurry up and make him stop." Her lack of care and growing frustration with the baby made me anxious. I worried about leaving our son with her and wished for her to move out as soon as possible. "Honey, I'm really afraid for our son's safety with Pam around." I confided in Ken. "I think it's best if she leaves." Ken agreed and began making arrangements to find a new place for Pam. Soon our living room was cluttered with her belongings. I had to keep a constant watch over our son to prevent him from getting hurt by her things. Despite our repeated warnings, Pam's behavior didn't improve. We were determined to persuade her to move out and restore some peace to our home. I was in a panic when I realized that our son was missing from his room where he was supposed to be sleeping. Frantically searching, I found Pam outside with him. "What are you doing? How could you take our son out without our permission?" I demanded. "I just wanted to show him off a little," Pam replied dismissively. "You shouldn't worry so much. If I took him out like this, people might talk, but it's not a big deal. And stop shouting at me." I was stunned that Pam had taken our son without informing me and seemed completely unapologetic. Instead, she became defensive. Ken and I were both furious, and we decided to ask Pam to leave our home immediately. It had been a year since that incident. Our son had turned 1 and was starting to walk. Then tragically, my husband was involved in an accident on his way home from work and passed away unexpectedly. I was devastated and lost for words, grappling with the sudden loss of Ken and the uncertainty of how to care for our young son alone. At Ken's funeral, my grief was overwhelming. Couldn't stop crying. In the midst of this heart attack, Pam approached me. "Hello, long time no see, Anna," she said, her tone strangely casual. "I never imagined we'd see each other again under these circumstances." "Oh, Pam," I said, struggling to keep my emotions in check. I could only imagine the depth of Pam's grief, having lost her own son. The pain of losing Ken was immense, and I knew I needed to be strong for him. "It's just so sudden," managed to say through my tears. "Indeed," Pam replied. "Since the family house now belongs to my son, I assume I'll be getting it right. And could you also leave the furniture?" I was taken aback. It felt incredibly inappropriate for Pam to bring up the house and its contents at a time like this. Couldn't understand why she was focusing on material things when we were both mourning such a profound loss. "What are you talking about?" I asked, bewildered. "The house cost $500,000 to build, and there's still a mortgage to be paid." "Oh, well, you're going to cover that, right?" she responded casually. I couldn't believe Pam was discussing the house and mortgage at Ken's funeral. "I'm not sure I want to talk about this right now," I said, trying to remain composed. "We're here to remember Ken." But Pam insisted it's important we address this now. "No, this is not the right time," I said firmly. "If you continue to behave like this, please leave immediately." I was fed up with Pam's insensitivity. We were at Ken's funeral, and it was unacceptable for her to be so focused on property issues while we were grieving. When I firmly told Pam to leave, She fell silent and walked away. I was left wondering what she was thinking, especially given the recent loss of her own son. After the funeral and cremation, I managed to calm down. I knew I couldn't stay sad forever. I needed to focus on working hard to provide for my son. I put him in daycare and returned to my job, juggling work, house chores, and childcare as best as I could. One day, after picking up my son from daycare, I was shocked to find all my belongings piled up in a dumpster near the entrance of my home. My clothes, desk, and work items were all thrown together in a huge heap. "What is going on here?" I demanded. Upon closer inspection, I noticed that some of my more valuable items, expensive clothes, accessories, the TV, and the large fridge, hadn't been discarded but were still there. As I tried to make sense of the situation, a mover approached me and began discussing a fee. Confused, I asked what this was about. "Oh, great timing," the mover said. "Well, you live here, right? The cost of the move is..." It quickly became clear that Pam had hired the mover. The realization left me stunned and frustrated. What is Pam trying to do? Is she in my house right now? I had to enter, but the front door wouldn't open. Panic set in as I realized Pam might have changed the locks. Had she somehow gotten hold of my house key while I was preoccupied with Ken's funeral? Immediately called Pam. "What is the meaning of this, Pam? How dare you come into my house without permission and throw out my belongings without asking me first? There's nothing wrong with taking my son's things. You're no longer part of the family, so get out." "What are you talking about? Ken is gone, but you have no right to act this way. Get out before I report you for trespassing." Pam abruptly hung up the phone. I was infuriated by her selfishness and knew I had to find a way to reclaim my house. With my son crying and unable to stay outside forever, I decided it was best to go to a hotel or my parents' house for the time being. I asked the movers to store my belongings temporarily and left. A week later, I received a phone call from Pam, who sounded distressed. "Hey, the police are here and it looks like they're trying to make me leave the house. Please do something about it." I couldn't believe she had the audacity to call me for help after evicting me. Pam's selfishness was overwhelming. "I'm sorry, but I'm not your family anymore," I replied. "We've gone through a post-mortem divorce settlement. I can't assist you." Pam's behavior was appalling, and I was determined to sort things out and get my house back. "What do you mean by post-mortem divorce?" Pam asked, puzzled. "It's a legal procedure to sever ties with the relatives of my deceased husband," I explained. "Since I'm still legally Ken's spouse, I inherit the house. I've cut ties with you, so you have no right to live here or expect any support from me." "What? You know I have nothing, and yet you're kicking me out?" Pam protested. "Yes, I am," I replied firmly. "Since we're no longer family, I have no obligation to you." Pam sounded outraged. "But I took care of the baby. How can you be so ungrateful and cold?" It was clear that Pam didn't understand, or didn't want to acknowledge, how wrong her actions were. Her anger only confirmed my decision. "If that's how you feel," I said, "you can stay if you want, but you'll need to pay the mortgage in one lump sum." "What? You want me to pay the mortgage in full?" Pam was incredulous. "You don't need to pay the mortgage that's already been covered up to now. You're only responsible for the remaining amount. But be warned, it's a significant sum." Pam was taken aback. How could I possibly pay for a house that's only been built for 3 years in one installment? "Well, if you can't manage it, then the house is mine, and you, as someone who is no longer part of the family, will be reported for breaking and entering." I ended the call, feeling resolved. I knew I didn't need to explain to Pam that the mortgage was covered by insurance after Ken's passing. A few days later, when I finally managed to get back into the house, I found it in disarray. Furniture was damaged and my clothes were in a mess. I took photos and documented everything, noting the costs and the circumstances under which Pam had evicted me. Even though filing a claim might not result in a payout, having this evidence could be useful if Pam caused further trouble. Later, Pam contacted me, demanding a $1,000 fine for trespassing. Of course, I had no intention of paying her. I ignored Pam's request. How could she not see that I was the victim in all of this? There was no way I would pay her any money. 3 years later, Pam's inability to pay her fines led to her being found guilty of malicious actions, resulting in a 3-year prison sentence. Once her sentence was served, Pam reached out to me. "Please, I'm in serious trouble. I have nowhere to go and don't know what to do," she pleaded. She seemed to be using a payphone as her calls were frequently cut off, likely due to lack of funds. It was clear that she was reaching out to anyone she could, desperately seeking help. The apartment my husband had rented for her was long gone, and the family home Ken and I built had been sold, as I had feared Pam might return. I felt a sense of justice in knowing that Pam's situation was a direct consequence of her own actions. "Pam, this is what you deserve. I have no obligation to help you, and I want you to stop bothering me. Live your life on your own," I told her firmly before ending the call. With that, I closed the chapter on Pam, determined to focus on raising my son to be strong and independent. I placed my hand on Ken's photo, holding it close with my son by my side. Thank you for watching until the end. Please subscribe to our channel, and we hope to see you in our next video.
My name is Elizabeth Thompson, and I'm 27 years old. I've been married to James for 5 years, and together we have a 4-year-old son named Jack. Initially, I worked full-time after our marriage, but now I transitioned to a part-time role at the same workplace where James is employed. James and I began dating due to his persistent pursuit, which eventually led to our marriage. However, things changed after we tied the knot. James, once kind, became domineering, adopting a mentality of complacency once he had caught me. His younger sister, Jennifer, who is about to turn 20, became a frequent presence in our lives. Despite our age difference, James indulged her every whim, making me feel like a mere housemate catering to her demands. Jennifer's visits were often untimely and unannounced, and she never brought anything with her. Upon arrival, she would ignore me, as if it were a normal occurrence. James, on the other hand, welcomed her warmly, offering her our meals, even if they were meant for just the 3 of us. Whenever I raised concerns about the limited food, James would insist that I share my portion with Jennifer, blaming me for not anticipating her arrival. Although Jennifer would offer insincere apologies when prompted by James, it was evident that she enjoyed his unwavering support and care more than any genuine remorse. I found myself constantly sidelined, even during meals, as Jennifer would exclude both Jack and me from the table, insisting on private conversations with James. This exclusion extended to everyday tasks, as James and Jennifer seemed content to let me handle everything alone. I'd often felt like an invisible presence in my own home, relegated to the role of a housemaid while they enjoyed each other's company. One evening, as I was preparing to bathe Jack, James demanded that I fetch a specific dessert from a downtown bakery, despite the late hour. When I hesitated, citing Jack's bedtime routine, Jennifer joined in, pressuring me to comply with James's wishes. Fearing further confrontation, I reluctantly agreed, leaving Jack behind as I rushed to fulfill their request. As I stepped out of the house, I overheard James threatening me with divorce if I dared to defy him again, loud enough for Jack to hear. Despite his tender age, Jack's concerned expression mirrored my own fears and frustrations. I fought back tears as I turned to Jack, asking him, "What kind of cake do you want, Jack?" His eyes, cloudy with disappointment, lit up as he replied, "Mommy, I want a cake with lots of apples." We chatted animatedly about cake flavors on our way to the bakery, momentarily distracting me from the hurtful words. Arriving just before closing time, we found the selection limited. Nonetheless, I purchased 2 slices of strawberry sponge cake and 1 slice of the fruit-covered cake Jack desired. Eager to fulfill his wish, back home, I set the cakes on plates and served James and Jennifer before attending to Jack. To my dismay, Jennifer commented, "That cake looks more delicious," eyeing Jack's choice. James, without hesitation, swapped Jack's cake for Jennifer's, dismissing Jack's protest. When Jack cried out, James callously stated, "I bought that cake with my own money, so you don't have the right to choose." Enraged by his cruelty, I confronted them, only to be met with James's threat of divorce once again. Jack, his tears subsiding, looked at me with concern. After a moment's hesitation, he bravely began to eat the cake Jennifer was supposed to have. "Mummy, this cake is delicious. I'm glad I got this one," Jack forced a smile, masking his true feelings. Seeing 3 adults imposing such hardship on a child stirred something within me. In response to Jack's feigned enjoyment, I suggested we eat in another room, away from the toxic atmosphere. Despite James's protests, I took Jack to the other room, allowing him to savor his cake in peace. Ignoring my husband and Jennifer, we enjoyed our time together, finding solace in each other's company. That night, we slept in Jack's bed, finding comfort in our bond. The next morning, as I awoke to start the day, Jennifer had already departed. While tending to James and Jack, I heard Jack crying. Rushing to him, I discovered his porcelain piggy bank, a gift from my father, shattered, its contents missing. Every night, Jack would bid goodnight to that piggy bank, a cherished routine now shattered. I had watched Jack bid goodnight to his piggy bank the previous evening, a small ritual he cherished. With a sinking feeling, I suspected James, who was in the living room, might know something about its sudden demise. So without delay, I questioned him. His response was callous, lacking any hint of remorse. "She just needed a bit of money, so she broke the piggy bank," he stated indifferently, as if it were inconsequential. As Jack cried, I tried to console him, but soon found myself overcome with tears, unable to hold back the flood of emotion. I could endure the mistreatment from James and Jennifer, but seeing Jack left unprotected and wondering what he meant to James filled me with a sadness and anger I had never known. A mix of emotions surged within me, overwhelming my composure. As Jack and I wept, James chided, "Don't make me feel gloomy first thing in the morning," his words laced with irritation. Losing my patience, I confronted him openly, condemning his actions. "Don't you think what you did is wrong, even seeing Jack crying like this?" I exclaimed, breaking my resolve to shield Jack from marital discord. James, without a word, retrieved a document from the bedroom, a divorce form. Shoving it at me, he declared, "If you're not satisfied with what I say and do, let's get a divorce," before storming off to work. Jack, who had never before cried over matters involving James and Jennifer, had been inconsolable since last night. I, too, had surpassed the limits of my patience. "Jack, let's take a break from daycare today, okay?" I suggested, hoping to provide him some comfort. With a resounding yay, Jack eagerly agreed, thrilled at the prospect of spending the date with me. As he nestled on my knee, his innocent gaze filled me with a sense of serenity, reminding me of the boundless patience harbored within a child's heart. Together, we decided to indulge in a day of play to release the pent-up frustrations that weighed heavily upon us. Though I knew it would inconvenience my work, I felt it was the best course of action for Jack. After explaining the situation to my employer, we spent the day at the park, exhausting ourselves with laughter and games. By lunchtime, we returned home, where Jack, unusually clingy, nestled in my lap like a baby, finding solace in our shared embrace. I had originally planned to tackle some household chores while Jack napped. However, sensing the significance of the day, I decided to seek solace in watching Jack's peaceful slumber instead. Suddenly, the sound of the front door unlocking startled me. It was too early for James to be home. Hastily grabbing a nearby bag, I retreated to the bedroom closet, cradling Jack in my arms. Straining my ears, I discerned a familiar voice, Jennifer. She seemed to be searching for something, her rummaging filling the air with tension. Peeking through the slightly opened closet door, I observed Jennifer's actions and listened to her muttered frustrations. After a flurry of noisy activity, she made a phone call, expressing her inability to find what she was looking for. With a resigned sigh, she mentioned bro before finally leaving and locking the door behind her. Emerging from the closet, I gently laid Jack on the bed, pondering the intrusion. What could James and Jennifer be searching for? And why did Jennifer have a key? I felt a wave of unease, as if James had become a stranger. In a rush, I packed Jack's essentials into the bag I had grabbed. Just as I finished, Jack stirred awake. "Jack, let's go to Grandpa's house," I said, taking his hand and hastily making our way to the station. Within moments, we were on a train headed to my parents' home, just 2 stops away. Arriving unannounced, my parents were surprised to see us. Jack wasted no time in playing with the family dog, his laughter easing my tension. As I explained the unsettling events to my parents, I couldn't shake the feeling of fear that lingered. I wondered if Jennifer's search was for something personal, perhaps my banking card from my single days. I became increasingly convinced that the missing item Jennifer and possibly James were searching for was indeed my banking card from my single days. This suspicion stemmed from the fact that I had once run a successful online shop for handmade goods, which had flourished with the help of friends I'd invited into the business. As my shop gained popularity and recognition, I had made plans for my trusted friends to manage it while I focused on motherhood. Balancing part-time office work with my responsibilities at home, I had kept my role as the company's president hidden from James. Despite his knowledge of my entrepreneurial past, I hadn't disclosed my continued involvement in the business. This secrecy stemmed from issues that arose after our marriage. James, who had a habit of spending his entire salary with no savings, had pressured me to become a full-time homemaker. Unwilling to accept his terms, we had settled on my working part-time. However, he had insisted I sign a contract limiting my claims to marital property, leaving me financially vulnerable. Throughout our marriage, I had received only a meager allowance for household expenses, covering the child's needs from my own earnings. James' presumption that I still had savings from my single days likely fueled his and Jennifer's search for my banking card. Nevertheless, I had taken precautions to safeguard my assets. I had a separate savings account for our child, to which I regularly contributed. The banking card they sought would yield nothing, as I had stored it in the family safe at my parents' home, following my father's advice. However, another concern arose when Jack tearfully confessed to breaking a piggy bank gifted by my father, failing to save money as promised. This infuriated my father, who was on the verge of confronting James when my mother intervened, urging caution. With no concrete evidence, acting rashly could worsen the situation, especially given James's casual mentions of divorce. This insight prompted me to reassess the situation, considering the implications of my husband's actions and Jennifer's unexpected intrusion. Fearing that James might exploit any perceived wrongdoing on our part to his advantage in the divorce, I made the decision to record their conversation, hoping to uncover their true intentions. In the meantime, my parents sought advice from a trusted family lawyer, a longtime friend of my father. Upon our return home, I began preparing dinner as usual, with my phone discreetly recording the unfolding events. True to expectations, James's first question was about the whereabouts of the banking card. When I pressed for an explanation, the conversation quickly escalated. He grew visibly agitated, demanding all my part-time earnings, citing my sister's supposed troubles as justification. Refusing to comply, I explained that I was saving for our child's future. In response, James thrust divorce papers at me, accusing me of arrogance and implying his sister's importance over Jack's well-being. Silently, I halted my dinner preparations, stashing the divorce papers in the bag I had packed earlier. Taking Jack's hand, I headed for the door, ignoring James' ultimatum. He warned me not to return, emphasizing his seriousness about the divorce, citing his discomfort with Jennifer's unrestricted access to our home. Leaving behind the familiarity of our home, I was bombarded with calls and emails from James, all of which I ignored as we made our way to my parents' house. There, I shared the recording with them and presented the divorce papers James had given me. Discussing our options, my parents acknowledged the potential harm a divorce could inflict on Jack's tender heart. Lost in contemplation, Jack's innocent request for food broke through the tension. My mother swiftly prepared his favorite dish, hamburgers, tears welling in my eyes as I realized the depth of my emotions. The floodgates of my emotions burst open, and I found myself unable to stem the tears. Jack's enjoyment of the hamburger was palpable, his grin stretching from ear to ear as he expressed his wish to have Grandma's hamburgers every day. "It's because Grandma fills them with so much love," he proclaimed, offering me a bite-sized piece with an earnest smile. As I tasted the familiar flavors, Jack's tender words melted my heart even further. "This hamburger is filled with love. Isn't it tasty, Mommy? Please don't cry," he pleaded, his concern touching me deeply, but his compassion only brought forth more tears from me. Sensing my distress, my father intervened, explaining to Jack that my tears were tears of joy, moved by his thoughtful gesture. He reassured Jack that family moments like these were precious and brought immense happiness. In a poignant moment, Jack expressed his understanding, feeling more love from our family than from his father. Embracing the concept of divorce with a maturity beyond his years, he found solace in the warmth of our family. Even back at my parents' house, Jack found comfort in our aging dog Max, declaring him as his little brother. With a sense of resolution, I made the decision to proceed with the divorce, knowing it was the best path for our family's well-being. The following day, as Jack slept soundly beside my father and Max, I shared a bed with my mother, finding solace in the familiar comfort of her presence. We reminisced about cherished childhood memories until sleep claimed us. Upon waking, I braced myself for the flurry of messages from James. Over 200 missed calls and emails awaited me, ranging from harsh criticisms to desperate pleas for reconciliation. Despite the uncertainty, I remained steadfast in my decision to prioritize the happiness and stability of our family. Feeling the weight of the situation, I switched off my phone once again, temporarily shutting out the chaos of messages and calls. Later that afternoon, my lawyer arrived, and we delved into the intricacies of my predicament, solidifying my resolve to proceed with the divorce. With solemnity, we signed the necessary documents, setting the wheels of legal separation in motion. The following day, my lawyer met with James to discuss the terms of our divorce. 2 days later, he returned to my parents' house with updates. The outcome was revealing and disheartening. Jennifer's troubles ran deep, stemming from a shopping addiction and involvement with questionable establishments. James, acting as her guarantor, had been entangled in her financial mess. Their plan to utilize my savings to alleviate their debts was laid bare. Despite his earlier resistance to the divorce, James appeared to have a change of heart, expressing regret and sorrow. He agreed to a fair child support arrangement for Jack, acknowledging his responsibility. In a brief but emotional conversation, James confessed his misguided priorities and misplaced loyalty to Jennifer. He lamented the strained relationship with Jack and expressed a desire for reconciliation. However, I remained resolute in my decision to move forward with the divorce, firmly closing the door on any chance of reconciliation. After our conversation, I embraced a fresh start, leaning on the support of my parents as I navigated the transition. Jack's well-being remained my priority, and I ensured his smooth transition to a new daycare. Meanwhile, I revitalized my career as a businesswoman, seizing the opportunity for personal growth and empowerment. As for James and Jennifer, I could no longer remain silent about their actions. I informed my in-laws, who, in a justified fury, decided to sever ties with them. Now living in modest circumstances, James and Jennifer faced the consequences of their choices, their once strong bond now fractured by blame and resentment. Their downfall served as my own form of retribution, a reminder of the consequences of betrayal and greed.
I'm Karen, 33 years old, happily married to William, who's also 33, and together we have our precious 3-year-old daughter, Evelyn. William's family is deeply rooted in education. They run a successful tutoring center, with both his parents being former teachers and William holding a teaching license himself. Academia runs in their blood. It's surreal sometimes to think I'm part of such a distinguished family. Initially, my own parents and friends were apprehensive, but their worries were unfounded. The truth is, William's family is wonderful. Despite my more sporty inclinations, they embrace me wholeheartedly. My mother-in-law was especially delighted to gain a daughter. Though I felt a bit nervous initially, my buoyant and outgoing nature helped bridge any gaps. I chose to be authentically myself, and through that, we cultivated a strong and loving relationship. I'm a certified arborist, specializing in the health assessments, pruning, planting, and relocation of trees, along with offering consulting services. Achieving my certification required rigorous study, and even now, in the field, it remains physically demanding. This job demands both brains and brawn, and I take pride in excelling at both. Currently, my husband works as a tutor at his family's tutoring center, though he previously taught elementary school. Our paths first crossed when I visited his school for a consultation on tree care. After the birth of our daughter, I took some time for parental leave, only returning to work last year. With our little one still in her tender years, family takes precedence, a balance thankfully supported by my understanding workplace. Nonetheless, there are occasions when I struggle to make it home in time for pickup. In such moments, I'm grateful for the assistance of my mother-in-law and the flexibility of my husband, who steps in whenever possible. It's a life filled with fulfillment, supported by a network of understanding and assistance. In my married life, there was one individual who brought some challenges. My sister-in-law, married to my husband's brother. My husband has 2 siblings and he falls in the middle. The youngest brother remains unattached, while the eldest, Richard, is married to Sarah, the source of my concerns. Sarah is primarily a homemaker but also lends a hand with the financial and administrative tasks at the tutoring center. She and Richard have a 5-year-old son, and it appears they're gearing up to enroll him in a private elementary school. The first encounter with Sarah, during a visit to my in-laws, revealed her distinct demeanor. She was petite, impeccably dressed, with neatly styled hair, and her smile was captivating. Yet beneath that exterior, there lay another side to her. It was in the midst of assisting my mother-in-law in the kitchen when Sarah momentarily stepped away. Suddenly, her tone transformed as she confronted me. "Could you not put more effort into your appearance?" I was taken aback. The Sarah who had just been smiling seemed like an entirely different person. "You always seem to wear clothes that are worn and unkempt. Don't you realize you stand out for the wrong reasons? It's embarrassing." These clothes are just practical for me, especially since I'm constantly chasing after my little daughter," I explained. "I understand, I have a child too," Sarah responded with an exaggerated sigh, hinting at more she wanted to convey. However, her demeanor swiftly reverted to its usual state upon seeing my mother-in-law approaching. "Oh, what's the conversation about?" my mother-in-law inquired as she re-entered the room. "Just chatting about childcare," I replied, noticing Sarah's rapid shift in tone. It was almost as if she had a built-in switch that activated whenever my mother-in-law was around. My mother-in-law gave me a quizzical look, silently asking if that was the case. "Yes, just discussing our kids," Sarah chimed in, appearing content with the explanation. Skinny Sarah's snide remarks didn't particularly intimidate me, but I couldn't easily brush off her level of sarcasm, especially without causing undue concern for my mother-in-law. It's not uncommon to hear about tensions with in-laws. It's practically a universal experience, what with the notorious mother-in-law factor. In contrast, my mother-in-law is a beacon of support, always championing my career endeavors. I initially believed I could deflect my sister-in-law's barbs effortlessly. However, every encounter seemed to escalate her belittling behavior. During a hurried work errand, I unexpectedly ran into Sarah, engaged in conversation with a group of her acquaintances. Offering a polite greeting, I acknowledged her presence. "Hello, Sarah." "Oh, hi there," came her response. Hastening on my way, I thought little of the brief interaction until later that evening when my home phone rang and Sarah's name flashed on the caller ID. "What do you think you're doing?" Sarah's voice sliced through the air, dripping with aggression. Right from the start. Confused, I asked, "What do you mean, earlier today? Don't you dare come up to me in public dressed like that." Her tone was harsh, her words cutting. "What's with your work attire? It's utterly inappropriate to stroll around like that. Did you see us? We're all moms, getting our kids ready for private school entrance exams. We live in a different world from you." I felt my cheeks burn with embarrassment as she continued her verbal assault without pause. I was working, so yes, I was in my work clothes, I responded, trying to maintain composure. I don't care about your excuses. Just steer clear of me next time we bump into each other outside, okay? It's embarrassing. But isn't it even more awkward? We're family, I protested. That's exactly my point, she shot back. You don't fit into this family. Just so you know, I've never considered you a sister-in-law. With that, she abruptly ended the call, leaving me reeling from an unexpected onslaught of her feelings. It was clear she had gone out of her way to unload her frustrations. Despite her consistent complaints about me during family gatherings, it's when we're alone that my sister-in-law truly unveils her true colors. She prides herself on being a fashionable, high-society woman hailing from a well-to-do family. While I respect her preferences, I can't comprehend her incessant need to belittle me simply because I don't conform to her standards. Sure, she may sport elegant attire paired with athletic accessories, but why the excessive collection? I often wonder if her reserved husband, my brother-in-law, indulges her shopping sprees. Perhaps he's oblivious to this side of her personality. It's just part of who she is. I've refrained from sharing these observations with my brother-in-law and mother-in-law, opting to confide in my husband instead, given the mounting stress. Really? She doesn't strike me as that type. He initially brushed it off. However, a few days later, my mother-in-law reached out, extending an invitation to a family dinner scheduled for the upcoming weekend. We live roughly 30 minutes apart by car. Typically, my mother-in-law doesn't meddle in our households. However, she insists on bringing the entire family together for special occasions like my father-in-law's birthday, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. This time, it was because my father-in-law's birthday was approaching. We managed to secure a private room at his favorite steakhouse this time around. It's our inaugural visit as a family, and the anticipation is palpable. I hope you're looking forward to it, my mother-in-law remarked. Oh, absolutely. Thank you, I replied, genuinely excited, albeit dreading the inevitable encounter with my sister-in-law. You don't seem too thrilled. Is work keeping you busy? She inquired. Oh, I'm fine. Really? I quickly reassured her. Uh-oh. Had my tone given away my apprehension, I hurriedly attempted to dispel any concern. Karen, if there's anything troubling you at home, please don't hesitate to tell me, okay? She pressed further. Our home. Everything's under control. Even when work keeps me late, you've been a tremendous help. I truly appreciate all your support, I responded. It's not about your family, though, she clarified. Ha! I was puzzled, failing to grasp her meaning. The weekend finally arrived, ushering in the much-anticipated dinner party in honor of my father-in-law's birthday. It was an opportunity to shower him and my mother-in-law with gratitude. I made a silent vow to immerse myself in the celebration and not allow my sister-in-law's venomous demeanor to dampen my spirits. Setting out early from home, I entered the private room at the restaurant with a sense of relief. My father-in-law, mother-in-law, brother-in-law, and sister-in-law had yet to arrive. I'd arrived ahead of schedule to ensure my father-in-law wouldn't be kept waiting on his special day, and also, if I'm honest, to minimize any interaction with Sarah. However, just as I settled in, my brother-in-law and Sarah made their entrance. Hello, I greeted them, mustering a polite smile. Hi, Karen, Sarah responded coolly. Richard, good to see you, I added, attempting to maintain a cordial atmosphere. While my husband and brother-in-law engaged in conversation, Sarah wasted no time in approaching me, her gaze sweeping me from head to toe before emitting an audible sigh. What on earth are you wearing? Sarah's disdainful remark sliced through the air, delivered in a hushed tone as if attempting to avoid detection. It was the usual start to her demeaning comments. I forced a tight-lipped smile, trying to maintain composure. Is this really the appropriate time or place for this? I questioned through clenched teeth. I chose this dress with the occasion in mind. Is it not suitable? It's not like it's from some high-end brand or anything. It's rather surprising you'd show up in such a cheap ensemble, Sarah continued, her tone dripping with condescension. And those shoulders of yours for a woman, they're quite broad. The dress doesn't flatter you at all. And your accessories? Just a wedding ring? And no nail polish. Your hands look rough. I bristled at her critique. I can't wear nail polish for my job. Ever thought about how inconvenient it would be to do household chores with long nails, Sarah? I countered. My work involves handling wood and soil, in addition to household tasks. My hands may not be dainty, but they're a testament to my hard work as a gardener. These hands, these shoulders, they're my pride. But she continued to belittle them, and I couldn't hold back any longer. What's that supposed to mean? Are you insinuating that I don't do housework? My retort seemed to strike a nerve as Sarah's voice suddenly rose in volume. I've had enough of you, Sarah seethed, her frustration bubbling over. I've tried to extend a helping hand out of kindness, but you never listen. And now you're resisting. It's unbearable to be associated with a rough woman like you. Feeling the weight of her words, Sarah seemed to momentarily lose her grip on reality and the context of the situation. I've made a mistake, she murmured, her anger clouding her judgment. Today is my father-in-law's celebration. Please just leave me alone. Confusion mingled with hurt as I struggled to comprehend her sudden outburst. What? You're the one causing a scene. You're the one who doesn't fit into this family, I retorted, my patience wearing thin. I've already told you I won't dine with someone as uncouth as you. Just go home. Excuse me, I have to go home. This dinner was arranged by my mother-in-law, and the one clearly disrupting it is her. We can address your grievances about me later. Trust me, I have a few things to say to you as well. But for now, I've made up my mind to stand my ground. And you? You don't get to speak to me that way. Didn't you hear me? I said go home. In fact, consider leaving this family. Just as my husband began to approach, responding to Sarah's escalating voice, the door to the private room swung open. It's you who should be leaving, my mother-in-law entered calmly yet assertively. Following her were my father-in-law and their youngest son, John. My mother-in-law gently shut the door behind them, signaling the end of the confrontation. What? Sarah's fiery demeanor seemed to evaporate as she suddenly realized the gravity of the situation. Her mouth opened and closed in disbelief, words failing her momentarily. What's going on? Everyone please, let's sit down, she stammered, attempting to regain control. Despite her soft tone, there was an undeniable authority in my mother-in-law's presence that compelled everyone to comply. It appears we need to address something before we can proceed with the birthday celebration. I apologize for this disruption, my mother-in-law continued, glancing at my father-in-law, who nodded in agreement before turning her attention back to Sarah. Sarah, what exactly did you say to Karen? Even my typically gentle mother-in-law could wield a sharp edge of sarcasm when necessary. Sarah, visibly flustered, attempted to backtrack. Oh, I was just saying how much I'm looking forward to the meal today. Did I mishear something? I thought I heard someone saying leave. Huh? No, it was just a minor disagreement, just a playful banter. Sarah attempted to downplay the situation, still visibly perturbed. I couldn't help but admire her attempt to restore her usual cheerful facade. A disagreement. What sparked it? It appeared you were the one dominating the conversation. Have you been treating Karen like this all along? My mother-in-law's gaze bored into Sarah, her words cutting through the tension like a sharp blade. I wasn't mistreating her. I was merely offering some advice on etiquette and attire as a senior member of this household. Sarah defended herself, though her explanation rang hollow. Everyone should have the freedom to dress as they please as long as it's respectful. Karen's attire wasn't out of place. She simply chose non-branded clothing and kept her makeup and accessories minimal. I thought she should avoid causing embarrassment for you and the rest of us. Enough. My mother-in-law's sudden outburst startled both Sarah and me. The three brothers and my father-in-law were well aware of how formidable my mother-in-law could be when injured, but they remained composed, diverting their attention to the children with picture books and gentle conversation to ease the tension. No, Sarah, it's you who should be feeling embarrassed. I've sensed something amiss between you two, even during gatherings at our home. Initially, I assumed you were engaged in friendly chats, my mother-in-law continued, her tone cutting through the air with precision. Huh? Yes, friendly chats, exactly, Sarah chimed in, her desperation evident in her eyes as she cast a pleading glance my way. However, avoided meeting her gaze. For the record, Karen never once complained about you. She extended kindness, hoping you might eventually change your approach, but instead, you chose to escalate, my mother-in-law asserted, her words carrying a weight of disappointment. Stammering, Sarah attempted to formulate a response only to be met with my mother-in-law's unwavering scrutiny. And you always dress impeccably with an extensive collection of handbags. My mother-in-law continued, her tone growing sharper. But where does all that money come from? Just as Sarah thought she had regained control of the conversation, an unexpected question left her stunned. That money, it comes from we compensate you for your assistance with the tutoring center's finances, she stammered, her attempt at an explanation faltering. Even if my son has given you permission to use those funds as you see fit, it hardly seems sufficient to account for your lavish purchases of designer clothes and handbags. Well, you see, Sarah began, her voice trailing off as my mother-in-law's pointed inquiry pierced the air. Are you taking advantage of your position overseeing the household finances to fulfill your own desires? My mother-in-law pressed further. What do you mean? Sarah's confusion was palpable, her words stumbling over each other in a desperate attempt to deflect the accusation. I couldn't help but share in her confusion. I, too, had often wondered about the source of their wealth. Initially, I had assumed my brother-in-law was simply a generous provider. Perhaps he entrusted all financial matters to Sarah. It troubled me to think he might have been oblivious to their spending habits, perhaps swayed by Sarah's facade of being a dutiful wife. In that light, I almost felt sorry for him. So, you've been splurging recklessly, and now you're considering sending your child to a private school? My mother-in-law queried. Surely, you've been setting aside funds for their education, haven't you? Well, you're not suggesting we foot the bill, are you? Sarah hesitated, her response tinged with uncertainty. No, not at all, but he's your beloved grandchild after all. It became clear that Sarah had been counting on my father-in-law and mother-in-law's financial support all along. Naturally, we adore our grandchildren. We're prepared to assist them financially if necessary, my mother-in-law affirmed. Really? But only after you're no longer living under our roof? I interjected, taken aback by the implications. What? No, that's not what I meant. I apologize for telling you to leave, Karen, Sarah interjected, addressing me by name for the first time. You'll forgive me, won't you? We're practically sisters, after all. Sisters only as long as you're married to my brother-in-law. My mother-in-law glanced at me, silently encouraging me to continue. Even if it's official, I don't want to consider you family. I don't see you as a sister, I stated firmly. Sarah's response was a startled noise, clearly caught off guard. And that's not all. It seems you've been dipping into the funds from the tutoring school, my mother-in-law continued, her words landing like a bombshell. Sarah was rendered speechless, her eyes widening in shock. Is that true? I couldn't hide my surprise at my mother-in-law's revelation. While I had suspected Sarah might be using household funds, I never imagined she would touch the money from the tutoring school operated by my in-laws. You managed to evade detection for some time, so it took us a while to uncover your actions. Even Bob, who has overseen our accounts for years, fell victim to your manipulation, my mother-in-law continued, her tone stern. Sarah's complexion paled visibly. You've been making purchases like gift baskets for our suppliers, showing appreciation to teachers, and hosting seminars, all under your purview. The expenses on the receipts gradually escalated. You offered excuses, claiming you were fulfilling birthday gift requests or acting on behalf of me or my son. But that's simply not. Sarah interjected, her voice shaky, attempting to deny the accusations. You've been purchasing items under false pretenses, mislabeling them as gifts. This is unprecedented. But Bob trusted you as our son's wife. He was informed that you were treating part-time lecturers to lunch, but in reality, you were indulging in tea and dining with your circle of friends, my mother-in-law continued, her disappointment evident in her voice. The suspicious transactions on the receipts began to multiply, and Bob eventually brought his concerns to our attention. Even before that, our son had initiated an inquiry after noticing irregularities, she added, her tone growing increasingly grave. What? You've betrayed the trust of everyone who believed in you. It appears that appearances matter more to you than anything else, my mother-in-law accused. Sarah turned to my brother-in-law, as if pleading for assistance, her voice barely above a whisper. However, he met her gaze with a cold stare, remaining silent. And if all these allegations hold true, I can hardly blame him, my mother-in-law continued, her gaze shifting to me. Karen, on the other hand, is the epitome of selflessness. While she may not prioritize fashion, she consistently places the needs of her family and her profession above her own. You may not take an interest in her work, but being a certified arborist is a remarkable achievement. I have no doubt she worked diligently to attain it. As Sarah sat there, rendered speechless and defeated, my mother-in-law shifted her focus to me. Unintentionally, tears welled up in my eyes at her unexpected words. I admire her, my mother-in-law began, her voice carrying a tone of genuine respect. I believe that if she wishes to continue her work, it's our duty to support her. Have you ever witnessed her in action? She's vibrant, unafraid to get her hands dirty or soil her clothes. And yet, you ridicule her. I remained silent, overcome with emotion, while Sarah was unable to muster any retort or defense. She simply hung her head in shame. While our tutoring school may not boast the grandeur of major corporations, we prioritize our teachers and students, earning their trust, my mother-in-law continued, her words resolute. We've steadily grown by addressing each student's unique needs and those of their families. What truly matters are the people and their hearts. It's you who doesn't belong here. It's you who should leave. My mother-in-law's decisive stance left an indelible impression on me. Sarah, who had meticulously crafted an image of a flawless, sophisticated wife, was abruptly ousted from her affluent family. Despite attempts at reconciliation from my brother-in-law, Sarah's refusal to acknowledge her misdeeds and her simmering anger led to the serving of divorce papers. With the truth of her embezzlement exposed, Sarah's hopes for compensation vanished, leaving her with nothing. Meanwhile, my brother-in-law, supported by our father-in-law and mother-in-law, vowed to maintain stability for their son. Sarah, who habitually prioritized her own desires, would vent her frustrations onto her son when things didn't go her way. Yet the young boy remained resolute, finding solace in the reassurances of his father and grandparents. Although Sarah had insisted on sending him to a private elementary school against his wishes, he now enjoys carefree days spent playing with our daughter, free from the pressures of forced academics. Naturally, my husband and I are eager to offer our support in any way possible. During a relaxed day spent at my in-laws' home, my mother-in-law approached me with a heartfelt apology. I deeply regret any discomfort we may have caused you. We should have been more observant, she expressed sincerely. Oh, please don't worry about it. I wasn't truly bothered initially, I reassured her. If you ever find yourself in need of assistance in the future, please don't hesitate to reach out to us, she offered kindly. Yes, I replied, recalling your earlier sentiment, what's important is people and hearts. Suddenly, I noticed my mother-in-law's puzzled expression as I gazed at her intently. It's nothing. I was simply admiring your resilience, I clarified. Well, thank you, but the real admiration should be directed towards you and your talent for creating such stunning gardens, she countered graciously. Perhaps I'll enlist your help with ours next time. I've been meaning to replant the flower beds. Oh, definitely. I'd be thrilled to lend a hand, even if it's just for fun. Just give me a shout whenever you're ready, I responded eagerly. You should consider charging her, Mom. She can be quite demanding, my husband interjected with a playful tone, eliciting laughter from all of us. It was a moment of genuine warmth and camaraderie. Value people, cherish hearts. Those words echoed in my mind, leaving a lasting impression. As I looked around at my beloved family, I made a silent vow to treasure these moments and to prioritize laughter and joy in our future together. Grace, you even realize what you've done. What kind of person just abandons their duties as a wife and causes problems for William? You're a terrible wife, and I'm going to teach you a lesson. Mother, Grace responded calmly, I have my reasons for leaving. It doesn't matter, her mother-in-law snapped. We're moving into a nice, new apartment. If you want to live with us, I'll let you know the address. Grace thought to herself, I'm sure she still doesn't know anything. Well, it's a good thing she's in the dark. No, thank you, Grace said firmly. My name is Grace. I'm 35 years old, and I work in an office. My husband, William, and I have been married for 5 years. He's now 40, 5 years older than me. I used to date older men, but William's generosity and kindness drew me to him, and we eventually got married. For a while, our marriage was satisfying, but before long, a shadow fell over our peaceful life. I lost my job. William was suddenly laid off too. The company's business had taken a hit from the recession. I never imagined he would lose his job, especially since he worked for a big company. I thought we'd be financially secure for life, but it turns out that nothing is guaranteed in this world. We became financially strained, and I decided to return to work immediately. I contacted the company I had worked for before getting married, and luckily, they rehired me. They needed someone to fill in for an employee who had just gone on maternity leave. I was relieved that at least we had some income, but William struggled to find a new job. It's tough for a middle-aged man to start over. Eventually, he had no choice but to take on part-time work as a day laborer, bringing in about $700 a month. I was back at work, but my salary wasn't much either. We were barely making ends meet. "William," I suggested one evening, "the rent here is too high. Maybe we should move to a cheaper place and save some money. It would help us manage better if we lower our fixed costs." We had been living comfortably in a nice apartment thanks to William's previous high income, but now I thought it was time to face reality and find a more affordable place. But William rejected my idea firmly. "No, we're not moving." "Why not?" I asked, confused. "If we move to a smaller, cheaper apartment, Mom will start asking questions." "So what?" I countered. "Why not just tell her the truth? We're having a hard time making ends meet because you're out of work." William's face turned red with anger. "Don't you dare tell my mother I'm unemployed. Your salary and my earnings are enough to pay the rent. We'll leave it at that." I was shocked and confused. It seemed like he cared more about his pride in our home than about protecting our marriage. Even if we could cover the rent, we were still struggling with our finances. I had suggested moving to save money, but William wouldn't budge, and I eventually gave up on the idea. Life continued to be difficult, and then one day, William made an unbelievable comment to me. "This is all we have for dinner today?" he asked, incredulous. "We used to have more dishes. Just because you've started working doesn't mean you can slack off on your duties. Don't be lazy and manage this better." His words made me furious, and I couldn't hold back my retort. "I have no choice. We were struggling to make ends meet. I was doing my best to manage both the house and my job. But someone's unnecessary pride in staying in this apartment left me no choice but to cut back on food expenses. Or you could just make more money, and then everything would be just the way you want it," I remarked provocatively. William's face flushed with anger. "What the hell? Don't you dare talk to me like that. Just wait and see. I'll land a job at a good company and make more money than you." William's temper flared, but I told myself that if this sparked his motivation, I could endure his outbursts. I convinced myself it was fine, but reality soon set in. Despite his determination, William couldn't find a new job. He ended up working part-time as a day laborer, unable to secure anything better. Even with renewed motivation, the job market proved harsh. I could understand if he had taken the time to study and earn a qualification, but he hadn't. He simply worked part-time. Each interview led to rejection, and the humiliation of bowing down to younger interviewers wore him down. Eventually, William stopped looking for a job altogether, though he still believed he could earn more than me. By this point, I was disappointed and had already given up on the idea that he would turn things around. But my worries didn't stop with William. Earlier today, I received yet another phone call, this time from my mother-in-law. She called without hesitation, despite knowing I was at work. When I checked my phone during lunch, I saw over 10 missed calls. When I finally returned her call, her voice was sharp from the very first word. "Why didn't you answer the phone right away? I told you the other day that I'm at work, didn't I?" "Work? You call that working? My needs should come first." Since losing her husband a year ago, my mother-in-law had been calling me constantly. I understood she was lonely and felt I should support her, but all she ever talked about was how it's a wife's duty to support her husband. When she found out I had started working, she became furious and wouldn't stop calling. While I was at work, my phone rang again. "Did you talk to William about this properly? You can't even bother to return my calls." "I'm sorry," I said, trying to keep my tone calm, "but it's difficult for us to live with you right now." "I'm not asking for your opinion," she snapped. "William won't object to it." "Actually, William says it's too difficult," I explained. "Besides, we're having some financial issues." "Financial issues? How can that be? William works for a big company. They pay him well, so you two must be rich, right?" I was at a loss for words. William had been adamant that I shouldn't tell my mother-in-law the truth, so I couldn't explain our situation. She thought I was being selfish for working, convinced that I was lying about our financial struggles. Her constant calls were stressful, not just when I was at work, but even at night. A wife's first priority should be to support her husband, she often lectured. Taking care of your husband means taking care of his mother too. "Why haven't you visited me lately? What's wrong with you?" "I work full-time, and I'm exhausted," I explained. "William has been working part-time on weekends, so our schedules don't match." I'm sorry, but we're both so busy that it's hard to find time. Your schedules. But William is off on weekends. You could come then, couldn't you? My mother-in-law was clearly frustrated and kept pressing me. I felt it was time to tell her the truth about William. Actually, William works on weekends. What do you mean? She demanded. Just as I was about to reveal the truth, William, who had been lying on the sofa watching TV, rushed over and grabbed the phone from me. Mom, I'm sorry I haven't been able to visit you lately, he said smoothly. I'm working on a big project right now and have been putting in extra hours on weekends. I'll come visit as soon as things settle down. With that, he ended the call and turned to me, his expression stern. What were you doing? He asked, his voice low. Were you trying to tell my mom? I just think it's better to tell the truth, I replied, frustrated. If you keep this up, she'll keep nagging me because she doesn't know what's really going on. I'm sorry to hear that, but don't you dare tell my mom, William warned. That's enough, I shot back. You need to swallow your pride and tell her the truth. Shut up, I'm the one keeping us afloat, so you should be thanking me instead of talking back, he snapped, then stormed off to his room. I was on the verge of breaking down. The financial strain, combined with the pressure from both William and his mother, had pushed me to my limits. William claimed his part-time job was too demanding for him to do any housework, but he only worked on weekends and one day during the week. I knew he was capable of finding a better job or at least helping out around the house, but he chose not to. How can you do nothing at home and expect me to handle all the chores on top of everything else? I had finally reached my breaking point. I decided to leave for a while and return to my parents' house for a week. I wanted William to experience just how hard it was to manage the household alone. When I told my parents about our situation, they advised me to consider a divorce, but I wasn't ready to give up on our marriage that easily. We had been in love once, and we had been married for 5 years. If I was going to end it, I wanted to be sure I had done everything I could to make it work. After I left, William called me. When are you coming back? Where's my mail? I will be home for a while, I replied firmly. You'll have to do all the housework while I'm gone. Don't be ridiculous. Just come home and do the chores. No, I won't. Now you'll see how hard it is to handle everything on your own. You clean the house, do the laundry, cook, do it all yourself. It's important for you to understand just how much I've been doing while also working full-time. I ignored William's calls, deciding not to engage. Staying at my parents' house was a relief. For the first time in a long while, I shared the housework with my mom and dad. My mother would say, "You must be exhausted," as she served up home-cooked meals. I felt so grateful not having to do anything, with meals appearing as if by magic. I spent about a week at my parents' house, and honestly, I wanted to stay longer. But commuting from there to my office was challenging. It took an hour and a half each way. Eventually, I thought William must have realized by now how hard it was to manage the housework alone. So I decided it was time to return home. I was worried the house would be a mess, but when I walked in, I was surprised to find it cleaner than I expected. Still, something felt off. I had a sinking feeling and went straight to William's room. The closet was empty. His clothes and suitcases were gone. It hit me that he might have gone to his mother's place, so I called him. "What do you want now?" he answered, his tone cold. "Where are you?" I asked. "I'm at my parents' house." "You left right after I did, didn't you?" I said, trying to make sense of it. "That's right," he admitted. "What did you expect? You shouldn't have left in the first place. I'm not going back to that house." "What do you mean?" I asked, confused and hurt. "I'm going to live with my mom. In fact, we're moving into a new apartment." "I have no idea what you're talking about," I stammered, at a loss for words. Suddenly, the voice on the other end of the line changed. "Hey Grace," my mother-in-law's voice cut in sharply. "Do you have any idea what you've done? How dare you abandon your duties as a wife and cause trouble for William? You're such a terrible wife, and I'm going to teach you a lesson." "Mother, I had my reasons for leaving," I tried to explain. "It doesn't matter," she interrupted. "We're moving into a nice, new apartment. If you want to live with us, I'll let you know where it is." I realized she still had no idea what was really going on. This could work to my advantage, but I had to be firm. "No, thank you." "What?" she asked, clearly shocked. I said no. I repeated, "I'm not going." "Are you serious? William is going to live with me. If you don't come here, you'll have to be alone. You've been relying on him, haven't you?" "Don't worry," I replied calmly. "I can manage on my own." If we're not living together, there's no reason for us to stay married. I'm divorcing him. What? The word divorce clearly stunned both my mother-in-law and William. Their surprise was palpable through the phone. Grace, there's no need to mention divorce, William pleaded. I can't stay married to you anymore, I said, my resolve firm. I need to get rid of a husband like you as soon as possible. My mother-in-law snapped. How dare you talk to William like that? We don't want a life with you either, so fine. William, just get the divorce. No, William protested, but I cut him off. I'll have the divorce papers ready. You'll regret this, and it'll be too late for apologies. Same to you, I shot back before the call ended abruptly. I knew they would probably show up with the divorce papers soon, but I was relieved. Things were finally going the way I wanted. William's refusal to change made my decision clear. There was no need for us to stay together any longer. I decided to pack my bags while waiting for my mother-in-law to arrive. A few hours later, she showed up alone. Oh, William isn't here, she remarked, looking around. He doesn't need to be, I replied. Here you go, she said, handing me the divorce papers. I already had him fill out his section. Now, you just need to complete yours. As I took the papers, I noticed that William's handwriting looked shaky, as if written with trembling hands. My William is such a wonderful man, my mother-in-law continued, her voice filled with disdain. Even with a horrible wife like you, he was reluctant to get a divorce. I'll never forgive you for causing trouble for such a great person. I hope you live a miserable life and regret this. While I filled out my part of the form, she continued her tirade. William's pride had kept him from telling his mother the truth, even at the end. What a pathetic man he was. What happened to your house? I noticed it's empty. If you want to come back, there's no place for you, she sneered. I won't be coming back, I responded calmly. How much did you get for it? It was old, so it must have sold for cheap. That's none of your business, I said, tired of her prying. But since you're so curious, it was about $50,000. Not much, but enough for a comfortable retirement. William will pay for our new apartment, she bragged. Oh, so you were surprised he got approved? I asked, raising an eyebrow. William is a high-class person. It's only natural, she huffed. So, you put the money in William's account, I pressed. How did you know that? That's not important, she snapped. Stop asking questions and remember, you're just a divorced woman now. It's too late to hold on to him. Don't worry, I said, signing the papers with a flourish. I've already agreed to the divorce. My mother-in-law snorted and stormed out, clearly irritated. As she left, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. I was finally free from both her and William. I gathered the rest of my belongings and moved them to my parents' house, where I discovered a fresh start and the peace I had longed for. When I finally left, I managed to provoke my mother-in-law just enough to escape the burden of poverty they tried to impose on me. She insisted there was no way I'd get any of William's assets, but I couldn't help but remember the look on William's pale face during our discussions about the division of property. It still makes me chuckle. Then, about 2 years later, I received a call early one morning from an unfamiliar number. Thinking it might be work-related, I answered, only to hear the voice of my ex-mother-in-law. Oh, Grace, please help me, she cried. Mother, I replied coldly, you can't keep calling me that. We're strangers now. Don't say that, I'm in trouble. Oh, can't pay the rent? Savings running low? I asked, already guessing the situation. Yes, she admitted, her voice trembling. William didn't tell you about our financial problems until we were broke, did he? Oh, I knew, I said, unimpressed. He tried to hide it, didn't he? But every time I wanted to speak up, William told me not to. I'm sorry, Grace, I didn't know anything. I apologize, but please come back. I don't want to, I said firmly. William never changed, no matter how much I tried, and you always bullied me. I don't want to spend another minute with someone like you. Please don't say that. I don't have anything to eat anymore. I'm really desperate. According to my ex-mother-in-law, William had continued to put on airs, refusing to reveal their financial struggles. He'd been using the $50,000 from selling their family home to pay rent, splurging on expensive groceries and fancy meals to keep up appearances. It wasn't long before the money was gone, leaving them penniless. He got what he deserved, didn't he? I said, unfazed. Why don't you drop your pride and live modestly in a cheaper apartment? No, it wasn't supposed to be like this, she wailed. I was supposed to live a comfortable life with my elite son. Her cries fell on deaf ears. I quietly hung up the phone and blocked her number, taking the extra step of getting a restraining order just in case. I had no interest in being their crutch anymore. They'd always leaned on someone else, whether parents or children, never learning to stand on their own. I, on the other hand, was determined to live independently. With that resolve, I got my life back on track, focusing on my own happiness and well-being. William and his mother could continue their unbalanced, delusional lives without me. I'm so glad Grace could sever ties with such toxic people. Now she's free to lead an independent life, and who knows, maybe she'll meet a wonderful man in the future. Let's wish her a happy life from now on. Thank you for watching until the end. Please subscribe to our channel if you enjoyed this story. See you in the next video. Oh, my apologies. I mistook that for rummaging through trash, Emma remarked with a victorious grin, oblivious to the fatal error she was about to make. I go by Sally, 32 years young, employed as a seamstress within a bustling TV and film studio. My days are filled with the delicate task of mending costumes, a diverse array ranging from opulent period ensembles to the mundane attire of modern-day dramas. It's my duty to ensure they fit the bill of their era, and the actors who don them, tending to any wear and tear accrued during filming. In my daily routine, I navigate through piles of fabric, maneuvering sewing machines and wielding irons with practiced precision. While my primary responsibility lies in the art of garment repair, my true expertise lies in the craft of sewing. From intricate fixes to crafting creations from scratch, my hands are adept at bringing fabric to life. It's a skill passed down from my mother, a gift I've nurtured since childhood. This profession feels like more than just a job to me, it's a calling. Despite the erratic hours and occasional unreasonable requests, my passion for this work remains unwavering. I harbor hopes of spending a lifetime within these walls, weaving threads of creativity and craftsmanship indefinitely. At this studio, fate intertwined my path with Joe's. He held the responsibility of tending to the needs of the actors, while I diligently worked on costumes. With a mere 3-year age gap between us, our daily interactions cultivated a bond that naturally deepened over time. After 2 years of shared laughter and challenges, amidst our bustling schedules, we took the plunge into matrimony. However, as we embarked on this new chapter together, life threw a curveball. My world was shaken when my mother fell gravely ill and departed unexpectedly, casting a shadow over our joyous occasion and prompting Joe and me to postpone our wedding plans. Originally, our wedding plans were modest, envisioning a simple ceremony in a local church surrounded by close family. However, the unforeseen delay in our nuptials prompted us to reassess our priorities, setting our sights on saving up for a more elaborate celebration and a dream honeymoon. Given the erratic nature of our work schedules, the idea of renting a separate residence solely for sleeping seemed extravagant to us. Thus, in pursuit of our wedding fund, Joe and I made the decision to reside with his mother, Emma, in their family home. Both of us had experienced the loss of a parent early in life, forging a common bond in our shared grief. With my father's absence and Joe's similar experience, concerns for Emma's well-being weighed heavily on our minds. We embarked on this living arrangement with the best intentions, hoping to foster a harmonious relationship with Emma. Little did we know, it would mark the beginning of an unforeseen ordeal. Emma harbored no desire to foster a harmonious relationship with me. To her, I was nothing more than an interloper who had stolen her son's affections. The moment we settled into our new living arrangement, her relentless harassment commenced. Every corner of the house became an opportunity for criticism, each word laced with disdain. If I claimed Sally, she would begin, launching into a tirade about the state of the house and questioning my upbringing with thinly veiled insults. I endured the onslaught, striving to meet her exacting standards, even if it meant my hands cracked and blow from the relentless scrubbing. The demands for cleanliness were unfathomable, with no task too trivial to escape her scrutiny. Whether it was cleaning, laundry, or cooking, any imperfection, no matter how minor, warranted a redo, met with a nonchalant demeanor. As exhaustion set in, her harassment only intensified, each critique chipping away at my resolve. Even when I thought I had completed a task flawlessly, she would unearth some perceived flaw, leaving me to scrub the sink into the early hours of the morning. It became evident that she found fault in everything about me, her disapproval casting a shadow over every aspect of our shared existence. Under Emma's decree, I found myself burdened with the entirety of the household chores. Struggling to juggle my professional obligations alongside the mounting demands of domesticity, I made the difficult decision to transition to remote work. Yet far from alleviating the situation, this only served to intensify Emma's expectations. Each day mirrored a scene from Cinderella's tale, as I toiled ceaselessly over endless tasks. Has the laundry been tended to? The upstairs curtain is in disrepair. See to it. You're quite handy with a needle, aren't you, Sally? Emma's demands echoed incessantly, leaving me little respite even in the midst of urgent work commitments. Apologies, but I have pressing deadlines. Can the curtain not wait until the weekend? I pleaded, hoping for some reprieve. What nonsense. Leaving it as it is could invite gossip from the neighbors. It must be fixed immediately, she retorted sharply, dismissing any notion of delay. Thus my days blurred into a relentless cycle of multitasking, wherein I found myself simultaneously engrossed in work and ensnared by domestic duties. Often, the distinction between the two became increasingly blurred as I toiled well into the night, the chores ceaseless and unforgiving. It became apparent that Emma derived a perverse satisfaction from witnessing my gradual descent into exhaustion. Emma wielded her cruelty like a masterful sadist, inflicting torment upon me with relentless harassment, particularly when Joe was absent during the day. Our dynamic mirrored that of an oppressive owner and a submissive maid, with me bearing the brunt of all household responsibilities. Despite my inner turmoil, pride prevented me from easily confiding in Joe about the extent of my suffering. I persevered, striving to fulfill my designated role, yet the toll on my psyche far outweighed the physical strain of the chores. Occasionally, Emma would extend invitations to neighbors for lunch, transforming these gatherings into excruciating ordeals. Her criticism reached new heights in the presence of others, their conversations dripping with disdain as they disparaged me. She's utterly hopeless as a daughter-in-law. I have to lecture her incessantly. My son may be blind to it, but I'm not fooled. She's simply insufferable and devoid of common sense. Emma's words cut deep, amplified by the chorus of laughter from her guests, who seemed all too eager to join in the ridicule. As I labored through the tasks, their harsh judgments lingered like a heavy weight upon my heart, chipping away at my resilience. Each day felt like a battle against my own sanity, the relentless onslaught of criticism pushing me to the brink. If this continued unabated, I feared I might lose myself entirely to the suffocating grip of despair. But the challenges didn't end with Emma's relentless torment. There was also Joe's older sister, Sarah, aged 38. Sarah resided in a nearby town with her boyfriend, and if I were to sum her up in a single word, it would be stingy. Almost daily, she'd make her way to our house for lunch, likely aiming to save a few pennies. The most frustrating aspect was her habit of dropping by unannounced. Without prior warning, I couldn't prepare her portion of the meal, leaving me scrambling to accommodate her unexpected presence. She'd nonchalantly devour my food and depart without a second thought. For Sarah, possession was synonymous with entitlement. Everything in her possession was hers by default, extending even to items within her parents' home. Just what I needed. I was running low on tissues. I'll take these, she declared, helping herself to whatever caught her eye, regardless of its ownership. But Sarah, I purchased those for Emma. I'd protest, only to be met with a withering glare. What's the issue? You're always at home, aren't you? Just buy more, she'd dismiss, echoing her mother's callous disregard for boundaries. It's a marvel how Joe managed to emerge from such a family with his character intact. However, the greatest inconvenience arose when Sarah would pilfer ingredients meant for dinner without a word of permission. Each time, I'd be forced to abandon my chores and rush out for yet another shopping trip, disrupting the delicate balance of my already tumultuous existence. One day, I reached my breaking point. Sarah, could you please give me a heads up before taking anything? I mustered the courage to confront her. Little did I know, she promptly relayed the incident to Emma. Have you forbidden Sarah from visiting us? Emma interrogated, her accusatory tone slicing through the air. What? No, I never said that, I clarified, taken aback by the accusation. So, you're suggesting Sarah's fabricating stories? Emma's words hummed heavy in the tense atmosphere, leaving me trapped between Sarah's deceit and Emma's vindictiveness. Enduring Emma's cruelty alone was a torment, but when compounded with Sarah's falsehoods, the mental strain became unbearable. One day, as I walked past the room where they conversed, their voices carried enough for me to catch their words. It's as if we have our very own maid. Isn't it wonderful? I'm envious. Send her over to my place as well, Sarah remarked, her tone laced with mockery. A maid? Am I not your daughter-in-law? I interjected, unable to contain the hurt and indignation welling within me. Though I had silently accepted the role of a maid, hearing it vocalized pierced me to the core. In that moment, something deep within me snapped. That evening, I mustered the courage to bare my soul to Joe. I've reached my limit. I've endured Emma's torment for as long as I can bear. Please, I need to find a way out of this situation. After a solemn pause, Joe's response was unexpected yet welcomed. All right, we've managed to set aside enough funds. Let's make plans to move out soon. Truly, I'll begin searching for a new place immediately, I exclaimed, tears of relief cascading down my cheeks. Unbeknownst to us, Emma was lingering just beyond the threshold of our room, overhearing our conversation. Little did we realize, this moment would set in motion a series of peculiar events, unraveling in ways we couldn't have foreseen. From that pivotal day forward, the once dreary days began to gleam with newfound hope. I harbored a singular aspiration to craft my own wedding gown, a masterpiece born from my expertise in sewing. Inspired by our conversation, brimming with determination, I wasted no time in placing a substantial order for fabric online. With unwavering resolve, I resolved to channel all my energy into bringing this dream to fruition. That was my newfound purpose, my unwavering commitment. I began crafting the dress in secrecy within the confines of my room, away from the prying eyes of Emma and Sarah. However, one day Sarah, known for her unannounced visits, stumbled upon my work in progress. "What's this? A dress? It's lovely to have something of your own," she remarked, inspecting the fabric with interest. "Sally, I'm tying the knot in 2 months. Could you fashion my dress as well?" she requested, her tone casual yet expectant. "Truly. Well, renting seems like a frivolous expense. I aim to keep our wedding costs low, you know. So please," she added, her trademark thriftiness evident in her plea. Although hesitant, I relented, agreeing to undertake the task on the condition that she cover the material expenses. After all, it was quintessential Sarah, always seeking ways to pinch pennies. I began by crafting Sarah's dress, prioritizing her requests over preparations for our own wedding, which was still some time away. Sarah, however, made a curious request. "Keep this between us. Don't mention it to Mom." It became apparent she intended to deceive Emma, pretending to rent the dress while seeking financial aid from her. Whatever she paid me for the materials, she was determined to recoup, showcasing a level of frugality that bordered on impressive. I confided in Joe about the situation, hoping for guidance. His response was unsurprising yet disheartening. Once Sarah sets her mind on something, she rarely wavers. "I know it's a lot to ask, but if you could make the dress for her, it would greatly assist us," he admitted, his tone tinged with resignation. Though burdened by the request, I accepted with a determined smile. "Consider it done. I'll put my best foot forward," I reassured him, steeling myself for the task ahead. The prospect of being compensated for my efforts provided a much-needed source of motivation. I viewed it as an opportunity to refine my skills, all while saving on materials for my own wedding dress. Additionally, there lingered a glimmer of hope that this endeavor might foster a better rapport with Sarah. With this in mind, I dedicated myself to the task of dressmaking, squeezing it in between my household duties and primary job. Even Emma seemed to take notice of my newfound focus, occasionally casting curious glances into my workspace. As Sarah's wedding day rapidly approached, the dress I had been tirelessly crafting neared its completion. Then, unexpectedly, Emma paid a visit to my room wearing a smile. "You've been working diligently again today. Aren't you feeling exhausted?" she inquired, her sudden shift in demeanor leaving me unsettled. "Indeed, a little tired," I admitted cautiously, unsure of her intentions. "I'll brew some coffee. Why don't you take a break?" she suggested, her offer catching me off guard. "Really? That would be appreciated. Thank you," I responded, cautiously accepting her offer. With a reassuring smile, Emma assured me, "No need to thank me. I'll bring it to you shortly." Grateful yet wary of this unexpected act of kindness, I watched as Emma left the room, her humming leaving me with an inexplicable sense of unease. Emma making coffee for me, it was a gesture unprecedented in our tumultuous relationship. Various thoughts raced through my mind, but ultimately, I decided to put aside my concerns and return to my work. As I delicately added the final embellishments of lace to Sarah's dress, a sense of accomplishment washed over me. Despite the garment being intended for Sarah, I couldn't help but infuse it with a touch of my own care and affection. Suddenly, the aroma of coffee filled the air, signaling Emma's unexpected arrival. "Sally, may I come in?" she called through the door. Caught off guard, I hesitated before granting her entry. As she stepped into the room, my eyes widened in disbelief. Emma bore a tray overflowing with cups and saucers, each brimming with coffee. "Emma, wait, this wasn't just for two," I protested, noticing the excessive quantity of beverages. With a clumsy movement, Emma attempted to maneuver further into the room, causing the tray to teeter precariously. In a moment of panic, I reached out to steady her, but it was too late. The tray slipped from her grasp, sending cups crashing to the ground and coffee splattering in every direction. In the ensuing chaos, I stood frozen, my gaze fixated on the ruined dress now adorned with splotches of coffee resembling a peculiar giraffe pattern. A scream escaped my lips involuntarily, echoing the shock and dismay I felt in that moment. As I glanced up, I couldn't help but notice the fleeting smirk on Emma's face. "Oh no, I'm terribly sorry. It was an accident," she offered, her voice tinged with feigned remorse. "Are you alright? Wait, is that a dress? I thought you were rummaging through the trash." Emma's words pierced through me, leaving me speechless and bewildered. The shock of her actions rendered me momentarily speechless, my mind racing to comprehend her motives. Attempting to mask her malicious intent, Emma feigned concern. "Oh dear, you can't possibly wear that for your wedding, can you?" she remarked, her false sympathy thinly veiling her true intentions. It was then that my suspicions solidified into certainties. Emma was deliberately trying to sabotage our wedding, perhaps in a bid to thwart our plans of moving out afterward. But there was no time for anger. With adrenaline coursing through my veins, I darted to the bathroom with the stained dress and towel, frantically attempting to rinse off the coffee before the stain set. Emma's presence loomed in the doorway, her malicious grin fueling my determination to salvage the garment. "Need any assistance?" she offered with a sickening sweetness. "No, I'm perfectly capable," I retorted tersely, my voice tinged with a cold fury born of anger and panic. Just then, Sarah materialized behind Emma, her voice cutting through the tension like a knife. "What's going on? Are you tormenting Sally again?" Sarah's words hung in the air, a stark contrast to Emma's deceitful facade. "No, it's just an unfortunate accident. I accidentally spilled coffee on her dress," Emma replied smoothly, her tone dripping with insincerity. Emma's words dripped with apparent enjoyment, sending a chill down my spine. This was already a dire situation, but what followed was unexpected. "What? Are you serious? That's my dress." Sarah's voice rang out, incredulous and bewildered. Emma stood dumbfounded, her expression a mix of shock and disbelief. "Yours, Sarah? What do you mean? I had her make my dress. What am I going to do?" "My wedding is in 2 weeks," she exclaimed, panic seeping into her voice in a way I had never witnessed before. As I continued to scrub the dress, their frantic exchange unfolding before me, a realization dawned upon me. I had never disclosed to anyone that I was making the dress for Sarah. Emma's assumption that it was intended for me suddenly made sense. She wouldn't have purposely spilled coffee otherwise. If she had known it was for Sarah, there would be no motive for her to ruin it. Joe and I have long harbored plans to escape the oppressive confines of this family home once the wedding is behind us. In Emma's eyes, I've forever been the interloper, the thief cat who dared to snatch away her beloved son. The idea of her son being whisked away by someone she deems a mere maid is unbearable to her. In her mind, sabotaging our wedding seemed like a desperate attempt to anchor her son to home. Such petty and vindictive thoughts birthed her bizarre actions. Sarah's fury erupted like a storm, her accusatory words aimed squarely at Emma. "How could you? Everything is ruined. I can't believe my own mother would sabotage my wedding. I'm truly sorry, Sarah. Please find it in your heart to forgive me. I had no idea it was your dress. You don't think I would intentionally do such a thing, do you?" Emma's voice quivered with genuine remorse as she finally revealed her true feelings. As the heated exchange unfolded, I focused intently on washing the dress, feigning obliviousness to their confrontation. Suddenly, a man's voice cut through the tension, causing everyone to turn in unison. "Oh, Joe, when did you arrive?" Sarah exclaimed, startled by her brother's sudden appearance. "So, that's what happened, Mom," Joe stated calmly, his expression inscrutable. I hadn't even realized he had been silently observing the scene unfold, his arrival timed perfectly amidst the chaos of the argument between his mother and sister. Joe's voice pierced the air, tinged with palpable disappointment. You watched Sally pour her heart into that dress every single night, only to deliberately ruin it. That's truly despicable. It's not what you think. This is, Emma began, attempting to defend herself, but Joe's interruption cut her off. Don't try to make excuses. Joe's voice rose with frustration, causing Emma and Sarah to recoil in surprise. Emma, in particular, seemed stunned by her son's rare display of anger, a stark departure from his usual demeanor. Maintaining his composure, Joe continued, his tone heavy with sadness. I'm deeply disappointed, Mom. Sally endured your mistreatment all this time, hoping that one day you might change. She did it for my sake, because you're my mother. As Joe's words resonated through the room, a surge of emotion welled within me, threatening to spill over as tears. I had once misconstrued Joe's demeanor as indecisive and overly deferential to his mother, but now I witnessed a man steadfast in his determination to defend the woman he loved. Joe's unwavering stance, though perhaps unexpected, ignited a renewed admiration within me, reigniting the flames of my affection for him. Addressing Emma with unwavering resolve, Joe pressed on. This is where we stand, Mom. I can't simply overlook what's happened. I'm sorry, but Sally and I will be leaving this place as soon as possible. I intend to stay until the wedding for your sake, but I cannot prolong our stay any longer. Though it was just a dress this time, who's to say what the future holds? Sally could be in danger next time, and by then, it might be too late. Emma, taken aback by Joe's assertion, interjected with a vehement denial. Danger? Mom, I would never put her in danger. Joe's voice quivered with restrained anger as he confronted Emma. How could you speak so callously after destroying all of Sally's hard work? While his tone was measured, his frustration was unmistakable. This was his mother, after all, and Joe chose to express his discontent with quiet intensity rather than resorting to aggression. As Joe's words hung in the air, his expression shifted into something I had never witnessed before, an amalgamation of anger tinged with profound sorrow. It was a stark departure from the affectionate bond he shared with his mother. Emma, typically quick to retort with sharp words, stood speechless, tears streaming down her cheeks. It was a rare sight to witness Emma, usually so formidable, reduced to tears by her own son's disappointment. Sarah, too, stood in stunned silence, her gaze oscillating between Joe and Emma. The tension in the room was palpable, the weight of the moment hanging heavily upon us all. Later, Sarah made the difficult decision to cancel her wedding, realizing it was too close to the date to proceed amidst the turmoil within their family. Sarah was resigned to the fact that she wouldn't be receiving a refund. I'm not to blame. Emma was the one who footed the bill, she reasoned, her tone resigned. In Sarah's eyes, at least she wasn't losing any money, but the situation weighed heavily on Emma. It seemed that Emma was finally beginning to grasp the gravity of her thoughtless actions, which had spiraled out of control. The shock of being reprimanded by her son had left her visibly weakened. However, the fallout extended beyond the confines of our household. Sarah's abrupt cancellation of the wedding incensed her boyfriend and his family. The strain on their relationship became untenable, ultimately leading to their breakup. Sarah placed the blame squarely on Emma for the dissolution of her relationship, and the accusations continued to echo long after. After we departed from the family home, Emma's calls occasionally came, often with a request for money. It became evident that one of her reservations about our leaving was financial. While we lived together, we contributed to household expenses, but Emma solely relied on her pension for income. It seemed her financial assistance had become a crutch for her. Each time Emma reached out, Joe stood firm in his refusal. Mom, why not find work? There are opportunities out there. We all need to stand on our own feet. Please let us move forward independently, he urged, his words laced with a sense of responsibility. Despite Emma's pleas to avoid abandonment, Joe remained resolute. His unwavering stance seemed rooted in a deep-seated sense of duty. Eventually, Emma found employment as a janitor, a role that strangely suited her penchant for cleanliness, eliciting a hint of irony. Following her breakup and departure from her previous living arrangement, Sarah returned to reside with Emma. However, she ceased working altogether, relying solely on Emma's part-time income and pension. Upon seeing her again, I couldn't help but notice a striking change. Sarah was nearly unrecognizable, having gained a significant amount of weight. Joe and I have found solace in our new apartment, reveling in the tranquility of our newfound happiness. Gone are the days of snide remarks and sarcastic jabs. Our life together now is a blissful contrast to the dysfunction of our past in that family home. With a date set for our wedding, we've opted for an intimate ceremony, inviting only close friends and colleagues. Emma and Sarah, both grappling with their own struggles, won't be on the guest list. We've chosen to keep our celebration free from disturbances as they brought their isolation upon themselves. As preparations for the big day commence, I've begun crafting a new dress, a symbol of fresh beginnings and the beauty that awaits. This gown will be a testament to resilience, far surpassing the one marred by a giraffe-like pattern.